Welcome to this explainer. If you're focused on truly understanding the deep mechanics of protocol tokenomics, well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're tossing out the daily price tape. We're setting aside those short-term sentiment swings. Instead, we're putting on our professorial hats for a purely data-driven structural analysis of PLAZM's supply curve on day 223. We're going to look at how PLAZM's underlying supply mechanism operates in cycle form, and critically, how it stacks up against the protocols that built the original playbook. Let's get right into the data.
Okay, let's dive into this. 130 million. That is our immediate catalyst today. In just the last 24 hours alone, 130 million shares were retired from PLAZM staking. Total shares now sit at 8.66 billion. That is a massive, sudden contraction in the active staking pool.
So, what does this massive retirement actually mean for the broader supply curve? Well, it's absolutely crucial to understand that a drop of 130 million shares is not random noise. It is literally the audible click of a mechanism working exactly as designed. It's a huge stake position completing its cycle. As more of these positions roll over, the share count compresses and the protocol breathes. To really grasp the gravity of this, we need to pivot our focus to how PLAZM compares to its historical predecessors.
Here's the syllabus for our explainer today. First, the 77-day cycle framework. Second, historical protocol comparisons. Third, the buy and grow advantage. And finally, the 8-day cycle 3 watch list.
All right, moving right into Section 1, the 77-day cycle framework.
You see, the 77-day cycle isn't just some arbitrary marketing number drawn out of thin air. It's the exact, hard-coded stake completion period that drives the supply oscillation in this entire family of protocols. From day 1 to 77, that's cycle 1. Day 77 to 154 is cycle 2, and day 154 to 231 makes up cycle 3. The structural forces, like late cycle stake completions and mid-cycle bond accumulation, they all operate rhythmically according to this exact timeline.
Which brings us to exactly where we are right now. PLAZM Day 223 means we are squarely at cycle 3, day 69. We're just 8 days away from the cycle end wave, and this is a really vital distinction. To compare PLAZM fairly to historical peers like TitanX, Unity, or Taurus, calendar time is basically irrelevant. We can't compare day 223 of one to day 223 of another if they launch with totally different dynamics. We have to look at all of them at their exact structural equivalent, cycle 3, day 69.
That takes us to Section 2, historical protocol comparisons. Let's see how they stack up. We're going to start with TitanX, which is our closest historical analog since it shares the same code lineage and cycle math. At its exact cycle 3, day 69 equivalent, about 12% of TitanX's supply was staked, around 8% was burned, and the remaining 80% was liquid or otherwise distributed. It's a really solid baseline for us.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the stark contrast PLAZM presents at this exact same age. Today, PLAZM sits at 10% staked, 13% in liquidity pools, 58% liquid, and a massively higher 19% burned slice. While PLAZM's staked share is slightly lower than TitanX's, which is mostly due to TitanX having a much larger total token supply, its burn share is more than double. And remember, burns are permanent. That 19% gap, that's the protocol's buy, burn, and build engine doing real, structural work at the supply layer, vastly outpacing what TitanX achieved at this stage.
Next up, let's contrast PLAZM with Unity. Unity took the same structural playbook but, well, effectively forgot to deploy aggressive burns. By its cycle 3, day 69 equivalent, Unity's burn share was sitting at less than 4%. Compare that to PLAZM's 19%. That's roughly 5 times higher. Because Unity didn't burn aggressively, it became emissions dominant. Fresh tokens just flooded the liquid float way faster than they were retired, which diluted holders and hurt price action. PLAZM, on the other hand, is permanently retiring tokens much faster than emissions can add them.
And then we have Taurus. This is basically a cautionary tale of what happens when you have way too much liquid float. By its cycle 3 equivalent, a staggering 78% of Taurus's supply was fully liquid. Very little was committed, locked, or burned, which made the protocol incredibly fragile to even a single large seller. PLAZM, however, sits at a 58% liquid float. That is a massive 20 percentage point advantage in locked and committed supply over Taurus.
Summarizing our historical baselines here, the structural verdict becomes incredibly clear. When compared side by side at cycle 3, day 69, PLAZM clearly leads its predecessors right across the board. It boasts the highest burn share, strong liquidity pool commitments, and the lowest, most secure liquid float ratios.
Structurally speaking, PLAZM is just tighter than the protocols that came before it.
Let's jump into Section 3, the buy and grow advantage.
And this brilliantly illustrates the architectural engine actively causing this structural outperformance, the buy and grow funnel. Literally no analog protocol in our comparison set possesses this. Here is how it works every single day. The Treasury generates a daily yield, which is currently around $428. 20% of that, so roughly $86, is automatically routed back to reinvestment. That reinvestment purchases 2.29 new bonds per day, fueling further Treasury growth. It is a completely self-funded loop.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is what that 2.29 bonds a day turns into over time. Across a single 77-day cycle, those daily automated reinvestments compound to roughly 176 additional bonds. That represents a 1.3% additional Treasury accumulation per cycle entirely from yield alone.
As the report notes, and I love this phrasing, that continuity is the entire anti-fragile thesis playing out at the smallest possible timescale. This is the key takeaway. Because this mechanism runs on underlying yield, it guarantees Treasury accumulation even during severe sentiment droughts. It requires zero new user inflows to keep growing. So when fear is running high in the broader market, PLAZM's buy and grow engine is still quietly adding bonds every single day. All right, moving to our final segment, Section 4, the 8-day Cycle 3 watch list.
Over the next 8 days, keep your eyes on these 3 specific metrics. First, watch for continued share retirements. That 130 million share drop we talked about, it wasn't the last. We should expect clusters of retirements as late-cycle stake positions hit their 77-day boundary. Second, watch the burned percentage. With the engine deploying over $81,000 in its lifetime so far, expect that 19% burned share to just keep grinding higher. And third, monitor the LP share decision tree. As stakes complete, users have to decide, do they sell, restake, or park their tokens in liquidity pools? How that distribution settles will give us a perfectly clean picture of the Cycle 3 close.
It's also vital to note what is not on the horizon. Looking at the 80-day radar, there are 0 release cliffs above 100,000 tokens. This means that any upcoming supply pressure remains purely structural and totally predictable. It is not event-driven. The clean mathematics of the system are operating without looming, massive, unexpected unlocks to derail the compression, which is a really sharp contrast to the typical panic events we see elsewhere in crypto.
And that leaves us with our structural verdict. At day 223, PLAZM enters the end of Cycle 3 in a structurally stronger position than any of its peers ever did, with compounding advantages that require absolutely no new users. Now, of course, this is an educational analysis, not financial advice, and we all know markets still price in sentiment and macro conditions. But structurally, the engine is doing exactly what it was designed to do. So I'll leave you with this final provocative question. As the buy and grow engine relentlessly retires and commits supply, how much further can this compression go before market reflexivity kicks in? Keep watching those numbers as we approach day 231. Thanks for learning with me today.